Good morning, I'm Tim LaCrasse. Last week, Tom Brady and the Patriots bombarded the Redskins defense with 52 points. Can the Patriots do it again this week against the also undefeated Indianapolis Colts?
And I'm Pat McGuire. Your Lacey Lions are well rested coming off a bye week as they head to Wall this weekend for their last regular season game. The state playoffs are in sight. We'll discuss where the Lions will be and what they need to do to repeat as state champions.
Once again, good morning. You're watching This Week in Football. As always, I'm Tim LaCrasse. This is Pat McGuire. Last week in the NFL was a very close week. The Dolphins almost beat the wrong Giants out in London. The Jets almost beat the Bills. And the Packers just edged the Broncos out in overtime on Monday night. But before we talk about the NFL, Pat, the Lions look to close their playoff bid this week against Wall and even look to take the number 2 seed in the playoffs with a win and some help.
Oh, absolutely, Tim. No doubt the Lions need to win this weekend against Wall, and I'm sure they would love to just get the help they need to get that number 2 seed in the playoffs. The first playoff game is guaranteed to be at home, so the Lions have to be pleased that all their faithful will be out to support them. 2 consecutive losses early in the season have cost the Lions, but they seem to be over that now, and they're finally starting to play the way everyone has expected them to coming into this season. Warren Smith has been able to take control of the Lions' offense, and Tom Rickmers has his running game back on track. The entire defense for the Lions stepped up their game, having only allowed 3 scores in the last 2 games while scoring twice themselves against Middletown North. As you can see, the Lions are really on a roll and should stay hot against Wall this weekend and roll into the playoffs with that number 2 seed, as you said, Tim.
They play Wall this weekend, last game before the playoffs start, and they're facing probably the best wide receiver core in the Shore Conference, one of the big-time receivers getting recruited by Rutgers. What is Warren Smith and R.J. Rowe going to have to do to control the defensive part of the game?
They'll definitely have to play the best defensive game that they'll play all season. We've seen them struggle. The Lions secondary has struggled so far this season. They've allowed a couple of big plays, a lot of big, good receivers to go downfield and make plays. The Lions have to make sure it doesn't happen because that'll be a difference maker against Wall. If the Lions let up those 1 or 2 big plays for long touchdown drives, it really could cost them. That could cost them the win.
Now, we'll talk about the big plays in a minute, but the Lions so far this year have not been able to put pressure on the opposing team's quarterback. Is that going to be a necessity this week for the Lions to get a victory?
Absolutely. I think definitely heading into the state playoffs. As you said, with the wide receivers, the Wall's going to be looking to pass. They're not going to really run the ball a whole lot. Wall's going to be looking to put the ball in those receivers' hands. So pressure on the quarterback will definitely help the Lions' defense and make it easier on their secondary because if the quarterback doesn't have time to make good throws, the secondary doesn't have to worry about the receivers getting open so much.
Now, you mentioned it. The big play for the Lions' defense has been the big problem this year. They can't stop it. A pass deep, the team catches it, and a long run, the offensive team gets the blocks on the line defense. What are they going to have to do to stop the big play?
I think we've seen an improvement from the Lions almost every game since they had those back-to-back losses. And I think this week the improvement we're going to have to see is in the secondary. The Lions have to finally show they can shut down 2 good receivers. And it's really tough with Wall because they do have 2. It's not just one where they can put 2 best guys or double cover. They're going to have to cover both receivers and make sure they get the job done because if they don't, things could go bad for the Lions.
Lions are ranked number 3 in the South Group 3 playoffs as of right now. Number 2, Winslow takes on Eastern, who's 7-0, and a number 1 Hamilton take on Millville at 1-6. Obviously, they're going to need some help to get a higher rank. What's the better possibility, Winslow losing or Hamilton losing?
I think Winslow losing. I think that would make it guaranteed. There would be no question about it. If they lose, and the Giants will move, or the Lions will move right up. Things will go good either way for the Lions. Whether they get that 3 or 2 seed, really not a big deal. It's just who they're going to have to face later in the rounds. If they get that number 2 seed, they wouldn't have to face the number 1 seed until the finals. Where if they get the number 3, they'd be facing the number 2 in the semifinals. So I think the Lions definitely want to get that help, get the win, and hopefully get that number 2 seed because it'll just make their ride to the championship easier. But either way, a 2 or 3 seed, the Lions should be okay and should definitely get a first-round win.
If they get number 2, they have 2 home games. They get number 3, they only have a guaranteed 1. So maybe they want that. We're going to take a short break here on This Week in Football. When we come back, Pat and I will discuss the big games for Week 9 in the NFL.
Favorite player was Rocky Sand.
Oh yeah? All about in the world amounts to love and for a wizard like me. Every bound bounce of the ball makes the whole world fall. In love with a wizard, with a wizard. In love with a wizard, with a wizard. In love with a wizard, with a wizard.
Boy, those Harlem Wizards are awesome. They're coming back this year, November 16th, 7 o'clock, Lacey Township High School Gym to bounce out the stigma for autism. Pat and I will be there covering all the action. Welcome back to This Week in Football. Up next on our schedule are the big games of Week 9. The first game on our schedule is between the 4-3 Redskins and the 1-7 Jets. Pat, the million-dollar question for this week is, will Kellen Clemens make the difference in Jetland?
Well, Tim, the Jets better hope that Kellen Clemens is the answer they have been looking for all season long. Their loss last week to the Bills was once again embarrassing, and their offense has really been non-existent in the last few games. A solid running game is what's key for the Jets, so Kellen Clemens needs to be a consistent passer to open the running game up. The Redskins are trying to prove that they're better than their blowout loss to the Patriots last week made them look. Washington is a strong team and will need to take a win over the Jets today to keep pace in the NFC East. Kellen Clemens is under a lot of pressure today and will need to come out and perform. I think the Jets will show some positive signs with a new quarterback, but the Redskins should have no problem winning this game over the 1-7 Jets.
Now, Eric Mangini pulls the string late in the game, puts in Kellen Clemens. Kellen Clemens comes in, throws an interception. That's not the right start for Kellen Clemens, especially for Jet fans.
Absolutely. I don't think that was the start he was looking for, but I think now that he's had a full week to prepare, he knew he was going to be the starter all week, so it should be better for Kellen Clemens. He should be better prepared. The Redskins are a good team. The Jets really have to watch out. I don't really see the Jets getting a chance to definitely not getting a win today, but they have to play well. They have to show that they will improve and they can get better, because otherwise it's going to be a long second half of the season. Kellen Clemens needs to play well and show that he can be the man, and I think things will work out for him. This week is going to be a rough week. He should come out as long as he can stay consistent, not throw too many interceptions, maybe a touchdown pass or two, just show some positive signs, and I think that's all the Jets are looking for.
And he proved he can be the quarterback in Week 2 against Baltimore. He knew all week he was going to play, goes in and plays okay first half, but the second half he was really on fire, and the Jets would have gotten a win that week if it wasn't for their wide receivers. So he definitely knows what he's doing when he has time to prepare for it. Last week he comes in late in the game, didn't know if he was going to get it at all, and throws the interception. But you know what? They were down anyway, so they were going to lose it. What's going on with the Jets right now besides their quarterback controversy? Because absolutely nothing is working. He only scored 3 points against Buffalo last week.
Absolutely nothing has really been working for the Jets for the last couple of weeks. Their running game is really what's been the killer. We talked about it last week with Thomas Jones, how he hasn't really put up anything. He hasn't done anything for the Jets. Washington's a good runner, but he's not a consistent every down back. He's really not getting into the end zone. So things have not gone well for the Jets. Really, nothing is working for them. Their offensive line, I think, has really been the problem. I think the offensive line is really lacking a lot of the talent they had last year and not making plays for them on offense they usually did. Chad Pennington's seen a lot of pressure. The running game, as I said, hasn't had a lot of holes to run. I think the offensive line is really causing for the Jets, and defense has not played well. Defense has let up a lot of points. Teams are really running over the Jets. They need to really get together and start making plays because they lack big plays and they really lack playmakers on that team.
Can Washington come back after the Patriot tobacco last week?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Washington couldn't be happier with their opponent this week being the New York Jets. I think they know that they can come back. They're a better team than they played against the Patriots. Patriots are just a dominant team. They came out and just completely wrecked the Redskins. I think the Redskins are a better team, and I think this week we'll see that as they come out, and I think they're going to beat the Jets pretty bad. Tim, today we get to see two of the top running backs in the league face off in an interconference showdown between the San Diego Chargers and the Minnesota Vikings. Does LaDainian Tomlinson prove he's still the best in the league, or does Adrian Peterson show that he's ready to take that spot?
Pat, that question is still pretty much waiting to be answered. Adrian Peterson this season is obviously the best running back in the NFC and quite possibly in NFL statistically. However, you have to put into consideration LaDainian Tomlinson's past. In the past, he has been the best running back in a long time. Some even say that he was going to break Emmitt Smith's all-time rushing yards record and the touchdown rushing yard record. He's really not doing so good this year, but he's really firing up, and he's going to kind of continue doing that, and he's pretty much it for Chargers. If he doesn't do good, the Chargers aren't going to do well. And the past couple weeks where the Chargers have been winning, he's doing a great job.
So who do you think wins this game, Minnesota or San Diego?
It's got to be San Diego. Minnesota's 2-5, not really having the season they wanted. They only have Adrian Peterson. Their defense got shut down last week by the Eagle offense, and they're still in transition. I mean, they're gonna have an off year, maybe a couple of off years, because Tavares Jackson's obviously not the answer at quarterback for them. They're gonna have to go somewhere else, go outside their organization to go to quarterback. And other than that, they have the people there. They just gotta mold it into a winning football club.
Absolutely. Now we saw the Chargers acquired Chris Chambers this week through a trade with the Dolphins. How much of an impact is that going to have on the Chargers for the rest of the season?
I don't really. It'll be somewhat of an impact, but I don't think it's going to be that much. The real impact is going to be whether or not LaDainian Tomlinson can get the running game going. And once he starts running, that plays everything else even better. It'll give Phillip Rivers more time to get his passes off. Because when Phillip Rivers has been throwing bad passes, it's because he's been on the run, and that's what he was throwing bad passes when LT wasn't going. Now LT is going. He's starting to get. Phillip Rivers starting to get his pass back. Chris Chambers will come in there a little bit, but I don't think he'll make that much of a difference. It's going to depend on LT's play for the rest of the year.
Now keep it on the Chargers for a minute. We saw them come out of the start of the season and really struggle, but now they're on a 3-game win streak. They continue to play the way they've played during the 3-game win streak for the rest of the season, or do we see them go back to how they played when they struggled at the very start of the season?
Once again, in the early part of the season, LT was doing nothing. He didn't have a 100-yard game in like the first 4 or 5 games, and that was the big problem. Now he's starting to go, and when he's proved it in the past last year with the Chargers going 14-2. When he's running hard and he takes this team on his shoulders, they're gonna win and they're gonna roll to victory.
Now to the Vikings for 1 minute. Where do the Vikings need to improve? You said at quarterback. Is there any other position? What do they have to do to make sure that they can be better for next season?
Well, their defense is pretty solid most of the time. Their defense has been picked apart the last couple of weeks by 2 very good quarterbacks, in Tony Romo and Donovan McNabb. But I think their wide receivers really need to get an upgrade. I mean, Tavares Jackson, sure, he's not the best quarterback in the world, but if he had receivers to throw to and an offensive line that could block for him, he'd be pretty good. But again, you're asking for more than what the Vikings are willing to give. We're going to take one more quick commercial break here in This Week in Football. When we come back, the rest of the big games for Week 9, plus the WLTS awards right here on TV 21.
I'll start drinking in 8th grade, and I'll do some things I don't really want to do. So by the time my parents talk to me about it, alcohol won't be my only problem.
Kids who drink before age 15 are 5 times more likely to have alcohol problems when they're adults. So start talking before they start drinking.
My parents won't believe it could happen to me.
Welcome back to This Week in Football. Pat, the next game on our schedule is between the 8-0 Patriots and the 7-0 Colts. Is there a number 1 team and a number 2 team, or are there 2 number 1 teams?
Well, Tim, I think the truth will be told today, because the winner of this game automatically becomes the Super Bowl favorite at this point. This is by far the most anticipated regular season game in recent history, and will wind up being better than the Super Bowl. All the talk has been about Tom Brady and the Patriots' dominance so far this season, but Peyton Manning and the Colts have become a better team than they were when they won Super Bowl 41. The difference maker in this game will really be the offensive line for the Colts. If they can create holes for Joseph Adai to run, and the Colts can control the ball, then they will be the team that comes out on top. If they can't, and the ball's in Tom Brady's hands, you know he's going to throw a lot of touchdown passes. I've never been more excited to watch a football game, and I'm really, really excited to see this game happen today.
Now, watching ESPN all this week, most of the analysts have the Colts at number 1 and the Patriots at a number 2 or 1A. I'm kind of in agreement with them, considering the teams that the Patriots have been playing, other than the Cowboys. They're playing teams in their own division, and the teams in their own division have a combined 4 wins. And the Patriots, on the end, they have to play the Steelers and the Ravens and the Texans. And
I mean, it's tough to decide, because it's not easy to go undefeated this far into the season. I mean, Colts are 8-0, the Patriots are 7-0. I mean, it's not easily done by both teams. I mean, it is the NFL. It is the highest, level of football that there is out there. So I think both teams have to be respected that they're undefeated. And we've seen, the Patriots may not have played that strong of opponents, but they really are coming out and dominating people. As we said, like the Redskins last week, everyone saw the Redskins aren't a bad team. The Redskins are right in the thick of that NFC East race. And the Patriots came out and absolutely dominated them, and really have showed how good of a team they really are. So, I mean, it's tough to tell who's number one, number two. I mean, that's why this game is so important and such a big game, because it's really going to show who's the better team. I think it could even still be possible if both teams come out, this game goes into overtime or whatnot, if both teams play really well, then the question still won't be answered. But one team does have to come out on top today, and that team should be the Super Bowl favorite.
Now, Tom Brady obviously is going to be the MVP this year, barring some type of injury, or if Peyton Manning somehow just strikes fire and starts firing out touchdowns like it's his job. How do you stop a quarterback like that?
I think you really got to put pressure on him. I think he has such good receivers, so it's really tough. I mean, the Patriots really have all the weapons that you need to be such a successful team. I mean, they have all the wide receivers, so you can't double cover one guy because the next guy is just going to be open. I think you really have to put pressure on Tom Brady. He hasn't been sacked a whole lot this season. They have a tremendous offensive line, so it's not easy. But I think as much pressure as you can put on Tom Brady, you have to force him to make mistakes because that's the only way to take the ball out of his hands. As I said before, I mean, the real reason is the opposing team's offense really has to control the ball. If you keep the ball out of Tom Brady's hands, he can't hurt you. So the Colts have to come in, run down the clock, run the ball, and score through the running game, and really have the running game work to keep the ball out of Tom Brady's hands.
Peyton Manning's really taking a back seat to what Tom Brady's done this year, but still, he's leading his team to a 7-0 start and looking to repeat as Super Bowl champions.
I think Peyton Manning's perfectly fine with how the Colts are being perceived now. I mean, they won the Super Bowl last year. He got a Super Bowl title. All the hype was around him last year, but now it's on Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning has quietly played very, very well, got his team to 8-0, and they're playing really better than they're a better team this year than they were at this point last year. So this is a really exciting game, and I'm interested to see how the Colts finish out the rest of the season because I still think they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Is this a possible or definite AFC Championship match?
Oh, definitely a definite. Absolutely. There's no two better teams in the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl should be these two teams again. Really, the NFC cannot compete. Even the Cowboys, as we saw the Patriots come out and dominate them. This is as
You're not even putting the Chargers into the mix?
I really don't think so. The Chargers have not been impressive so far this season. I mean, they could go on a tear, but I really see these two teams as the very elite teams in the NFL and definitely going to be an AFC Championship game. Well, Tim, this week, the Dallas Cowboys head to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The Giants are breathing down the Cowboys' neck in the division race, but Dallas is undefeated against NFC teams this season. Can the Cowboys take care of business against the Eagles, or this division race get really interesting?
Well, the Cowboys are undefeated against everybody except the Patriots. But the factor for this week is the fact that the Cowboys are coming off a bye week after a come-from-behind victory over the Vikings just 2 weeks ago. They have been struggling as of late, but their second-half offense has been the key to all of their wins this year. The Cowboys need a game where they can score early and often, and I think this is the week to do it. The Eagles, despite beating the Vikings last week, have also been struggling. They gave up a last-minute win 2 weeks ago against the Bears, and their defense is struggling a little bit. And I think Tony Romo and Wade Phillips will be able to find a weak point in the Eagles' defense. I expect the Cowboys to win in Philadelphia and for T.O. to light up the Eagle defense.
Good. Tim, I'm not surprised that once again you picked the Cowboys, but the Eagles are really a struggling team, and I think the Cowboys should come out and really take control of that division. Now, Tony Romo's got a contract extension this week, so that's definitely a smart play for the Cowboys, correct?
Oh, definitely. The better Tony Romo does, the more money he's going to want. Now he's 6-1, 7-1, and now he's getting the $36 million over 3 years. That's the most important thing, I think. Now he's got that off his shoulders. He can sit down and say, all right, I'm guaranteed at least 2-3 more years as a Dallas Cowboy. He can go back, settle down, and make his plays.
Now, is Wade Phillips, the new head coach there in Dallas, is he the difference maker this season over Bill Parcells?
I just think the change from Bill Parcells and Wade Phillips is what is making a difference. Bill Parcells was the high, uptight, you got to practice, you got to do all this right for yourself to get a victory. Wade Phillips is laid back. He gives T.O. days off when T.O. needs days off because of his knees or whatever it is, and it's just the attitude. It's not the way he not the way he coaches. It's just their attitude around Dallas is what's giving the Cowboys a 6-1 start.
Now, we go to the Eagles for a minute. They're 3-4 right now, heading into this week. Do they finish over 500?
I don't think so. The Eagles are not a very good football team. Donovan McNabb, I'm expecting him to go somewhere else next year. They need to bring in another quarterback. They need to bring in another running back. Brian Westbrook is getting old. Every win the Eagles have had this year is been Brian Westbrook when he had 2 or more touchdowns, and that's the key factor. If you stop Brian Westbrook, this team's not going to go anywhere. And to tell the truth, all 3 defenses that the Eagles are going to be playing in the NFC East are going to be able to stop them because they've got good defensive lines and a good secondary, good linebackers. So if you stop Brian Westbrook, which I think everybody in the NFC can do, then you shut the Eagles down, which is basically what they've been doing. Well, it's now time for the WLTS Awards, Pat. As you can tell, it's our Halloween show, so who gets the candy and who gets the rocks this week?
Oh, Tim, absolutely. My candy's got to go to Drew Brees. He finally showed how good of a quarterback he really is, and he's finally been the Drew Brees of what we saw last season. 336 passing yards and 4 TDs in the Saints win was really impressive. Drew Brees finally got back on track, really looking like the Saints that everyone expected him to be this season. He's finally playing like they expected. A good breakout game for Drew Brees. I was really excited to see it. Hopefully he can keep it up. My LVP, really going down, St. Louis Rams. They've not gotten a win this season. They have so much talent on that team. Steven Jackson is hurt now. He has not played well. All the hype was around him this season, and he really hasn't come out and performed. Mark Bolger is looked like to be one of the top QBs in the NFL, has not played well this season.
He got a $30 million contract.
Yeah, $30 million contract, and now he's benched, and different things are going wrong for the Rams. Really not looking good. They haven't got a win so far this season. I mean, you compare them with the Dolphins. Now, you look at the Dolphins and the talent they have, and you can sort of understand why they are 0-7. But you look at the Rams, and I mean, they have the talent there. Ajik Bruce, Torrey Holt, their defense is still very good, but they have not been able to put up a win this season. Very disappointing for the Rams.
Well, my Halloween candy is being dished out to Brett Favre. Brett Favre is doing something out of nothing. The Green Bay Packers have basically no offensive stars other than Brett Favre, and he's making this team look spectacular. Against the Broncos on Monday Night Football, gets the win in overtime, leads his team to another fourth quarter late victory, and that's just been a story of Brett Favre's career, getting the football late in the game and scoring a touchdown. Now, my rocks go to the NFL front office. I think it's ridiculous that you send two teams all the way out to London in the pouring rain. The field was mush. I mean, you saw how many loose balls or just drop passes because of the rain and the moist weather. It's ridiculous. You should not be sending an NFL team over to London, especially in November or late October. It's going to be raining all the time. That'll just about do it for us here in This Week in Football. Pat, any last comments for Week 9 or the last week for the Lacey Township Lions?
Tim, the Lacey Lions are excited. They're coming off their bye week. The excitement's really building here as we head into the state playoffs. There's no time better than the state playoffs. I'm really excited for the Lions. Things are really starting to work out. I think we should make another state championship run.
I've just got to say, big game coming up this week. Indianapolis against the Patriots in Indianapolis. The favor goes toward the Patriots because they're 8-0, but I'm expecting the Colts to really put it to the Patriots. Maybe keep this game close, as you said. Send it late in the game or overtime, high-scoring affair. It's perfect. I believe the line score, the over/under is like 56 points or something for this week. It's going to be a good one. I'll just about do it for us here on This Week in Football. For Pat McGuire, I am Tim LaCrasse. Happy Sunday, Lacey Township, and enjoy your games. Have a nice Halloween weekend.